Respect the musician, the music, the musicians, the people that are with you. Respect everybody's time and treat everybody the way you would like to be treated.
Ja, hi, der Jan hier von nStuff. Wir sind hier beim Warwick BassCamp, einer tollen Veranstaltung, wo sich ein Haufen richtig cooler Bassisten und auch Bassistinnen zusammengefunden haben und haben jetzt hier ein kleines Interview mit Rhonda, die sich netterweise Zeit für uns genommen hat. So, how are you?
I'm great. Used to the time zone now.
Okay, so when did you arrive here?
Saturday, I believe. We came in Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had some time to walk around and visit the workshop and all the stuff.
I haven't, yeah, to the workshop. I haven't taken a factory tour yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saving that for tomorrow.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
So that's gonna be your highlight?
Yeah, I think. Well, you know, my highlight was everything, but that will be a nice cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
Cherry on the top.
So when did your collaboration with Warwick started?
It started when they asked me to do this. Actually, I don't play Warwick.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about Hans Peter and his camp, that his main objective is for the students to have the best possible education. So he gets just the best teachers he could get, regardless of what instrument they play. Now, 85% of them play Warwick. That's great, because they're smart. But the other 15% that don't play Warwick, he still hires them because it's about the education, not about the instrument that you play. So I think that's strategic and absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about your usual setup?
Well, right now I'm playing a PRS, which I absolutely love. Paul Reed Smith. It is a Gary Granger private stock bass, 4-string, and it is absolutely the business, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic bass. Rosewood, the first time they let me try it, Gary was nice enough and dumb enough to let me keep it for about 2 weeks, and then I said, I'm sorry, Gary, I can't give it back. And he was so nice that he let me keep it. Because this is a bass that was probably made, he's had it for about 3 years. And it's nice when wood starts to breathe, and the more that wood ages, it does. And this bass just, for me, had a sound and a character that I didn't have in anything else that I have. And I have quite a large collection of different types of basses that I love. And this one was definitely different, very durable, and it just said, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which amps are you using?
Right now I do not have an amp endorsement. I am searching a little bit for something in particular, but what I have done is I actually built my own amp with the help of Paul Reed Smith and some other audio engineers last year, and we had it built. It was ready March, April, and then I went out on tour with, we did a double bill with ZZ Top and Jeff Beck in America in April and May, and I used it on that, and it was absolutely fantastic. So what the gear that I made consists of is 3 212 cabinets together, no ports, no tweeters, it's all front push. 2 JBL 2206s at 600 watts RMS apiece, so you got a lot of power per cabinet. I had a preamp that was specifically made and designed, we designed it, that's made by a California company called JCF Audio. It's another company that does a lot of work for the really powerful preamps in Paul Reed Smith's basses. So I worked with this guy on Paul Reed Smith on a preamp, absolutely fantastic. We're thinking about powering the cabinets. It's still in production, but as far as right now, I'm using a Crest, an old 8200 that's been modified, the ones that are about 100 pounds, and it sounds incredible. And I used it on this tour, very large capacity, from large clubs to 20 to 50,000 seaters, outdoor sheds, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. So when you say you couldn't find the right amp for you on the market, can you tell us a little bit what's so special about the sound you want from an amp?
Well, the amps have the right sound. It's not that I couldn't find the right amp. I found there's quite a few amps that I am particular to. I've been with Mesa Boogie for 12 years. And I always love the sound of Mesa Boogie. Mesa Boogie's been great to me. They're a great family. They make great stuff. It's just that sometimes I found a little bit of a difference if it was my gear, or let's say I went to Germany to do a show for 3 days and it wasn't my equipment, and I get something that's on a loaner. It might not be in the same condition. It might be kind of wrecked.
Yeah.
And that's what doesn't work for me, you know, kind of getting stuff that affects the way that I play. When I get equipment that's kind of beat up, it doesn't, it makes my job harder, you know. So there's a lot of stuff that sounds great. It's not that I need something special so much. I'm very particular also to Aguilar. I think that they have an absolutely amazing sounding amp, and I would jump on them any day, but they don't make a separate power amp. Not a lot of these companies make separate power amps. There's just power that I could mix with the rest of the stuff that I like. Even though they like to, they don't make those parts. And a lot of the times they want you to play their cabinets, you know, so their advertising is there. And I understand that whole line. So it's not that I'm looking for anything special, or I'm not special, or I'm that special. I'm not. But I'm just not taking an endorsement, and I was just a person who put my money where my mouth was. I said, I want this, and I want this to work right. So you know what? You're not going to build it for me. Here, I'm going to build it, and I'm going to pay for it. And guess what? I like it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, but would you say you're like a gear nerd, or very much into all the equipment stuff to get the perfect sound? Or
No, not so much. I just know when the sound is right. But there's a difference. You know, there's a difference in an amp and how an amp projects if we're playing in a room this size. There's a difference of how an amp projects if we're playing in this next room with other people. And there's a difference of how an amp and these speakers project when you're playing in an outdoor shed and there's 100,000 people outside. Do you hear it? You know, I mean, there's a lot of different things. So for me, there's a lot of different aspects, and that I've learned. Some amps are great in a small setting, and if you're close to it and they project well, some don't. You go into larger venues, they don't sound the same. You have to do difference in the EQs, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. But I felt the letdown a little bit more when I went into really, really, really large venues and really, really large stages and playing with loud guitar players.
Yeah.
Guitar players can be loud because they have their frequency. With bass, it's a bit of a trick to be able to still have the presence, to have the sound, still have the volume. You know, a crest is, 4,000, 5,000 watts. I don't need 5,000 watts to play. That's not what I require. Maybe the amp is set on 2, or on 5, but my preamp is like a 1.5. But I just want to know that I have that overhead, so that if I want to get louder, when I turn up, I'm not distorting and I'm not losing the quality of my signal. The signal's still clean, just as clean, louder. So that's what I was really looking for.
Yeah, and most people might know you from your work with Prince and Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
But can you tell us a little bit about how you get there? Because I guess many people would like to play with those icons of guitar playing.
Well, I started in Canada, and when I first started playing with Prince, I came from Canada, and I was trying to do my best to get out of Canada, because Canada's great, it's a beautiful country, but for someone for myself, I came from Montreal, Quebec. I'm not born French Canadian. That's not my culture, so, I mean, hats off to Quebec, but they're more into, helping their own, so to speak, and protecting their own. So there's only so much that I could do with playing with French Canadian artists and the artists that were in Canada to do the type of music that I wanted to do, because it's not as popular as in America. So how it really started for me is obviously networking and playing around a bit, but what really made a difference was I started going to NAMM shows in California, even when I lived in Canada.
Yeah.
And I endorsed some American companies. I went there and played with a friend of mine. We met Sheila E. at that time, which was really great. It was a smaller community of female musicians at that time. It wasn't even as many as there are now. So we met her. It was really cool. After that, we went to the Musiker in Germany. And there was even less females. It was even more of a smaller community because we had less Americans. In California, it's mostly, that's what it is. But when we went there was less. Sheila was there again, and at that time, Sheila E. was putting a band together. She was going to be the band leader for Prince. Now, this is 1996, so we're going back almost 20 years. She was going to be the band leader and put a band together for Prince. He's always been kind of particular to females who can play. So she kind of befriended us because the friend that I was playing with at the Music Mesa was also female guitar player. So we sent her some material. She asked for material, and she forwarded it to Prince. She didn't end up being the band leader or doing the project at the end for whatever reason. She had other things going on and whatever that might have been. But they did call me in the end. He did call me in the end, and from that, that's really how I got the hookup.
And would you say it's easier these days to make a career in the music biz as a female, or is it still the same, like all the guys together and girls don't
I mean,
play?
I think it's there's more females playing professionally than I see now, but I mean, I can't really put it for a gender thing. You know, success in this business doesn't have to do with your gender. It has to do with this, how you carry yourself, how you get along with people. Because, I mean, if you can't get along with people, it doesn't help for you to be the only female in, an all-male touring band.
Yeah.
If you don't get along with everybody, or every time if someone makes a sexist comment, you're like, oh my God, I'm so offended, I'm leaving. You can't do all of those things. So, I mean, there's a gray area there. But I don't think gender has anything to do with, anybody can play, but you're asking me making a career out of it, being successful, I think it more has to do with this rather than your gender. The gender's kind of irrelevant. If you can play, you can play.
Yeah, but what would you say is are the most important musical things you have to know when you're starting as a pro? Is it like harmonics, or is it like the theory, or is it like groove? Or?
Groove is always important. Of course, that depends on what kind of style you're playing. If you're playing metal, if you're like Dave, Elfsinger started, who's playing, with Metallica and stuff, playing like this, or, being so concentrated on groove or harmonics might not be as important to his style of technique, playing with a pick and doing something completely different. So, I mean, it depends. I think one of the biggest lessons, you have to be confident on your instrument. You have to know your stuff. Your gear needs to be together because that's a reflection of you. But also, just like anything else, I think the main thing, you have to respect the music. And that's my main thing that I've used from the day that I started in this business to today and tomorrow. And how I describe respect the music is that, for instance, if you would hire me to play in your band and you gave me the music, it's my job to know those bass parts, and I will know the bass parts for you 100%, 120%. I'm going to know every bit of that bass part when I go into your rehearsal. So you know why you're not going to have to spend any extra time on me as a bass player going, you don't know the part, let's stop, let's get it right, or this person didn't know the part. And then from there, if you say to me, okay, you learn the original, okay, so now we want to take it somewhere else. Add a bit more stuff. Do something more. Play some more notes or don't. Whatever you're going to direct me to do from that point is probably what I'm going to do depending on the artist. But I'm not going to come in there the first day, not know your music first of all, and waste your time and everybody else's time, and maybe be late on top of it, don't even show up, and my gear doesn't work, and I've got a whole bunch of excuses from here to tomorrow about why this isn't what it is. That doesn't work. But depending on the artist, you're going to do different things. But that's generally what I do. I give you the respect to know the parts. Just like if I was hiring you in my band, that's what I want you to do. Because I don't want to spend hours with musicians if I can avoid it. Sometimes we like to rehearse as little as possible, most professionals, because there's something to be said for spontaneity, for not playing something over. And the more you play it sometimes you lose a little bit of the love for it. You play something 15 times in a row. Chances are, if you played a solo 15 times in a row, probably your first and second were the best. But the ones that get there, okay, they're cool, but they're maybe a little contrived, or whatever the take may be. Like we're in the studio. Sometimes if you find you're in the studio, sometimes the first take is the best, or the second take. When you start keeping going at it, it starts to get a little bit overcooked. So that's my main thing. You got to respect the musician, the music, the musicians, the people that are with you, respect everybody's time, and treat everybody the way you would like to be treated. All of those elements, I think, add to a lot of stuff, regardless of your gender. Those are the types of people that I would want in my band. Those are the types of people who tell me, hey, I respect you and I respect the music. I'm not saying it verbally, but I'm saying it this way.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want that in your band?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my main thing. Respect the music, man.
Yeah. And you're doing classes here at Warwick BassCamp. What was the topics of?
My topic, I did several clinics, several classes, and the subject was knowledge of your fingerboard, knowing your fingerboard. So I have several scales and several tricks with the right hand for making people use 3 fingers. Not everybody uses 3 fingers, but a lot of these examples are things that have changed my playing over a very short period of time. Exercises that I have done that give me incredible speed on my right hand. So it's some simple things, but some things that can come a little bit more complicated and make you think. And also I use the use of pentatonic shapes. I wanted people to understand and recognize the shapes rather than the notes, because we're dealing with only 5 pentatonic shapes, and it's a really interesting thing as bass players that we can do. You know, guitar players use the blues boxes a lot of times, but it's not always explained for bass players how they can use it differently. So my curriculum was knowledge of the fingerboard, the fretboard, and then my master class is on something that I call pulse rhythms, which is strictly funk and thumb all the way. I have about 12 different techniques on this hand and one on this that go together that make a constant rhythm. That's a whole nother subject, but it's a really cool thing. It's called pulse rhythms, but it's a whole funk series of slapping and top and bottom and using multiple fingers with this hand to make that happen.
Yeah, and as you said before, groove is very important.
Yeah.
And that's something that's sometimes not in the notes, but somehow in between. Have you some advice how to learn, like, to groove? Is it just to listen and to play?
The biggest part is to listen. A lot of people make this mistake, I think, of playing too soon. You can't listen when you're playing. That's 2 completely different things, especially when you're listening to a bass part and then you want to go and play it right away. I think one of the biggest lessons that you have is to listen and be silent, because you have to intake that. Feel can be intaken a couple of ways, but when you listen to it over and over and you play it, it gets impermeated in you. And a lot of that has to do with listening and not playing. And not playing.
Yeah.
Then play later. You can't listen and play at the same time.